Well, you know me as a specialist in tropical rainforest, and I've talked to you about various aspects of tropical rainforest several times before. Well, it was about 2 years ago that I visited a very interesting temperate rainforest in Cornwall, and that stimulated my interest. So I wrote a small letter about that in my president's report to the society. And as a result, Janet got hold of that and said, well, could you give a talk about it? And I thought, well, what do I know about the temperate rainforest? Well, I'd just visited one and learned a bit from there. Then I realized that in actual fact, I had visited almost all the temperate rainforests of the world. They occur in areas where the rainfall is about or over 2,000 millimeters and where there is hardly any dry season, so a lot of rain. Those of you who are in Cornwall know that that is true, but unfortunately in the UK, rather small patches of temperate rainforest are left, but there are still some to see, and I'll talk about them in a minute. But this picture that's in front of you shows the area where there is temperate rainforest. So if you can see the arrow coming here, they occur in the west coast of the Americas, in Canada, particularly in Vancouver area in North America, and they occur in the tip of South America in Chile. Very interesting rainforest there. It was really interesting to visit it. Then we have small patches left of what was much larger along the western coast of the UK, and particularly in Scotland, where I grew up. And so I realized that I had been botanizing in temperate rainforest when I was very young. And then there are a few in Scandinavia. And then one of the ones I had the privilege of visiting in 1960 were the ones in Turkey. And the other ones are in Tasmania, in Australia, and in New Zealand. So that is what we're talking about. And I'll talk about a little bit about most of them. The only one of these that I have not personally visited is the one in New Zealand. So, what is the temperate rainforest? This is a very typical picture of the UK rainforests. On the left, you can see the distribution where they probably occurred before we started cutting them down in Neolithic times. And then you can see some darker patches on the map. And this is where there are remains of it in Cornwall and Devon, in Wales, in the Lake District, and in Western Scotland. Those are the ones I visited as a youth, and just recently one in Cornwall. And they may not be so interesting for the rare plants that they have for Wildflower Society members, but they're very important for the diversity they contain of mosses and lichens. Look at those lichens hanging onto the tree there, very like Spanish moss, bromelia, that does in tropical rainforests. So those that view on the right-hand side of your screen is a very typical temperate rainforest. It's because of the rain that all these lichens and other epiphytes. That's a characteristic of rainforest. There are many plants that perch on the trees. With the rain there, they don't dry out badly. And so in the temperate rainforest, you mainly get ferns and lichens, particular ones, but various other plants as well. And that's probably of interest to the Wildflower Society members. Now, I don't know why I'm talking about this, because the real specialist in temperate rainforests is Guy Shrubsole, a very fine biologist. And I would recommend his book if you want to learn a lot more than I can say tonight to you. The Lost Rainforests of Britain is a very good book. It concentrates on the British rainforest, but it does talk about the other areas of the world and puts temperate rainforest of the world into perspective and helps ours. It is possibly a book that is written as an appeal for the conservation of our rainforests, an appeal to stop the destruction and do a lot more restoration of the small remnants, and particularly try and join some of the small patches together. So I hope some of you will get Guy Shrubsole's book after hearing this. So here's a typical view of one uh, in in Cornwall, in one of the National Trust rainforests there. And this one is in Wistman's Wood, the one on Dartmoor that I visited about 2 years ago, and stimulated my interest again into the temperate rainforest. Wistman's Wood is on the center of Dartmoor. It's about an hour's walk from the, the roads there, and it's rather a small area, as most of the remnants that we have there. But look at those lichens again, and ferns and other things perched on the trees. And because of the area they're in, wet, windy, they not very tall trees, but there is a good diversity of trees. And of course, the animals and plants that live in them are very important. They are a refuge for many other organisms. So that's why they're so important. And we want to do all we can to conserve temperate rainforests wherever they are in the world. This is a general view of Wistman's Wood. It is in this area here, a small patch of a few acres, nestled on a slope in a valley in the middle of Dartmoor. So it's an interesting place to visit, and as are the other rainforests of the UK. And you can read about where they are in Guy Shrubsole's book if you want to look for some of the other rainforests of Britain and to visit them. Now I want to skip to Vancouver and just show a few shots of the rainforest there. Like Britain, it's very wet and rainy in Vancouver, and so it's an ideal place for a rainforest. There, unlike ours, which are dominated by oaks, the ones in the Canadian rainforests are dominated by various conifers, as you can see in the picture on the right-hand side of your screen. So that's where they are. And here is a map of the Canadian and American rainforests. They are relatively intact. There's been quite a lot of deforestation to extract timber, and that has been the main risk to those forests. They've been overexploited for timber, but the northern part of them are relatively intact. It was very interesting to walk around in them. And here are one or two other views, very, very scenic sort of place in the North American rainforests. This is in Washington state. They extend southward into the USA in Washington. So basically, they're in Canada, all along the Canadian Pacific coast, and in Washington state. I've had the privilege of going to these on various times. Every time I've been to a conference in Vancouver or in Seattle, I have wandered out into the rainforest and made an expedition around them. So that's how I've got to know these rainforests fairly well. Another general view of the American rainforests. And here's one in Vancouver. So those are just a few shots of the North American rainforest. You can see how the conifers dominate in this. Here's a winter shot. I was there one time when there was a lot of snow on the ground. And now I want to move to the South American ones. We're going south to Chile, and this is the chapel on Cape Horn Island. I was lecturing on a cruise that went to Cape Horn and then up the Beagle Channel along the coast of Chile. And that gave me an opportunity to look at the southern rainforest. It's identical in climate, very wet, and no real dry season. So just the same sort of habitat in Chile. But the dominant plant there is the southern beech tree, Nothofagus. Now that's a very interesting genus of plants because it occurs in South America and it occurs in New Zealand. It's one of the many genera that are shared between South America, temperate South America, and New Zealand and Australia. The southern beech is, again, very similar in structure there to the rainforests of Britain. You can see the gnarled, bent over trees that are covered with lichens and ferns. Nothofagus and many other genera occur there. I've studied the Protea family, the Proteaceae, and there are various genera, Lomatia, for example, that's in cultivation, that occurs both in the southern rainforests here and over in Australia and New Zealand. So this is the southern rainforest. Now, if you look at it there, you will see the form of the trees. Very windy. It's a harsh climate to live in the rainforests of southern South America. Again, in this shot, you can see this sort of structure. Wherever you are, all these trees that you see there are Nothofagus, or the southern beech. But basically, it looks very similar to that shot I showed you of Wistman's wood. So it's certainly a good classification that these particular areas are classed as rainforest rather than just as an ordinary temperate forest. But what is interesting, as you see, we saw oak dominating in the ones in Britain, conifers in the ones of North America, and here the southern beech in the ones of South America. And I know Wildflower Society members like to see pictures of plants. And actually, when I was wandering around Cape Horn Island, there were quite a lot of things in flower, particularly members of the Ericaceae, as you can see in these photos. Here is now I'm afraid I've forgotten the name of this one, or I haven't identified it yet. Then something else that's very familiar and is another interesting genus in this forest is the genus Hebe. I expect those of you who are gardeners certainly have Hebe species growing in your gardens. Well, here is Hebe elliptica. Now, this is another interesting one because Hebe is also in South America and in New Zealand, and is one of those other plants that shows the connection that there was between the tip of South America and New Zealand when Antarctica was not frozen and was a continent that had all these plants distributed across it. Then they got isolated. Some of the genera have remained the same, but there's been a lot of speciation between them. And so it's mainly different species in the various genera that occur in South American rainforest and in the New Zealand rainforest. A few more pictures of the South American rainforest, where outside the rainforest in that region, there's a lot of tussock grass. And it's quite interesting because the Magellanic penguins like to make to nest under these tussocks of grass. And so where there is not forest, there are often these open areas of tussock grass there. Here we have another South American plant in the forest there. There were quite a variety of different things that I saw. Some of them I've identified now, some of them I haven't yet. I made quite a lot of collections there, and identifications are fairly slow coming in, but this shows you the beauty of around those forests of Cape Horn Island and going north of it, going up the coast of Chile. This shows the ship in which we were on doing this, but the photograph is not to show the ship, but to show the twisted branches of this rainforest. This is very, very typical structure of the trees of the temperate rainforest. And a more general view of the Turkish rainforest, the Colchic rainforest now. And the northern corner of Turkey on the border with Armenia are some very wet areas. There's an area just on the coast of the Black Sea there that has this rainforest. Its similarity to the Vancouver one is that the dominant trees in the Colchic rainforests are conifers. So a typical view of them, rather destroyed from timber and deforestation in Turkey, but there are some, rather like our rainforest, small areas of it still left. Here is a view of the rainforest on Murgul Mountain in Turkey. Not one of my photos, but it's quite near to the area. I wasn't quite as far to the east of Turkey when I visited the Turkish rainforest, but there is also quite a lot of birch in the Turkish rainforest. This shows you a map of Turkey, and the green areas are where forest exists in Turkey, and the purple areas on the right of your screen are the areas that are defined as Colchic rainforests. And you see how they're in Turkey and extending up into Armenia. I have only visited them in Turkey, not in the other countries where they occur. But all it needs is a lot of rain and no real dry season for rainforests to occur. The tragedy is that wherever they do occur, they have been overused. They're an important habitat for many animals, for many fungi, and so they are important biologically, and we need to strive for the maintenance of the rainforests of all types. Here, as you saw on the map, it extends up into Georgia as well. And this is a photo I took off the internet of the Colchic rainforest in Georgia. You can see the mist, very typical of all these forests, the mist that one gets along with the rain. It's a very wet sort of habitat. Another view, these are photos of the rainforest that when I visited Turkey. The one on the right is very old, as you can see, because it was in 1960, a very long time ago, that I had the privilege of visiting the Colchic rainforest. So with that, I think that's given you a fairly good summary of the different types of rainforest in the world. And I would recommend now that you take Guy Shrubsole's book and learn a lot more about the rainforests of the world. It's an important habitat. What I am most interested in seeing that we conserve what's left and that we restore them. There is various projects. There's one in Cornwall, or two in Cornwall, two that I know of, that are doing replanting to restore some of the rainforest there. So I hope that members of the Wildflower Society can get involved in that in Cornwall, in Scotland, in Wales, and the Lake District. So I hope that this has stimulated your interest in a very interesting habitat of which we only have very small patches left. So thank you for letting me talk to you tonight on the temperate rainforest.
Thank you. I'm sure we've got some questions to Gillian to ask you, and perhaps I can start. People can perhaps put the question onto the chat line, and I'll kick off by asking a question. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Right. Right. We've seen the trees get very twisted and bent in the rainforest, and I think my husband and I think we've seen some of that ourselves in Wales. Why particularly do they get so twisted and bent? I mean, is it the rain, the wind? Why should they be so different in their form?
It's the wind and the changing direction of the winds, really, that causes them to get so bent. So it's mainly due to wind rather than the rain.
So it's not that it's wet at some times, so it grows faster, and it's dry at other times, and it's not so. It's just it is the wind, you think?
Yes, it's seldom dry in the rainforest, so it must be much more to do with the wind. And what happens is that as the wind breaks the branches or bends them over, then they really put out tissue that causes them to become fixed in that position. And then it blows a bit more in other directions and twists them around. I think if you've been as I have a lot in the west coast of Scotland and seen the wind there, or even in Cornwall, some of the storms there, you can't help but know that these are windy areas. One of the interesting things, the real twisted ones that I showed were in the forest in Cornwall and the one in South America. Now, those are particularly windy areas. If you looked at the rainforests that I showed in Canada, those were very erect, straight conifer trees. And there it is not nearly as windy as it is in Chile or in Scotland, or indeed in some of the other areas, the rainforests of Tasmania, where you also get some of the twisted, contorted forms. And it seems very definitely that it's in the areas with wind, and the other areas, the trees are relatively straight and erect. That's why in the Canadian and Turkish ones, there's a lot more deforestation for the collection of timber. The contorted timber of the other sorts, not much use except for firewood.
Now, there's quite a few questions in, but being the hostess, I have a prerogative here. So my little second question, you said that what we'd like to do, and you showed the map of the UK temperate rainforest, where there were much bigger areas, and there's now just little small blobs, little small areas in the different places. And you said we must work to make them join up together. What would be the advantage of them joining up together? And is there anything, are there any schemes to do that, and to what end?
Well, very small areas in quite danger of being eliminated by the various other things. As they are habitats for many animals and birds, they need to be much more joined together, and a corridor through which the plants and the animals can disperse from one place to another. When you're isolated into a small area, diversity tends to drop dramatically. And so enlarging them and getting them together again, the diversity of both plants and animals will increase considerably. One of the things in a small area is you've got a lot of light coming in and aside all around them, whereas the larger the area, a lot of it is obscured from the light coming in from the side. And that is true whether it's in temperate or tropical rainforests. You want to reduce the edge effect of the forest by enlarging them.
Oh, thank you.
Mainly as a corridor for animal and plant dispersal.
Thank you. Looking at the chat line, Jill McCready said early on that she's reading the book by the guy. It's very impressive. She's enjoying it. Ali Singleton tells us the South American region is, I think, was it the Viola maculata? She says the plant, the flower you said, I think.
Yes, that's right. It is. That's right.
Joe Glentworth says the Wildlife Trust are also running a big project on temperate rainforests. And
yes, I'm very pleased that they are.
And they're on the chat line, which I'll send around to people if like, is there a connection for the website that's on. Jake asks, is there an online map available of UK temperate rainforests? I haven't seen one.
Oh. I haven't seen one. The map that you see, are they still seeing the screen at the moment?
Yeah.
Because that's from Guy Shrubsole's book.
Yeah. Perhaps if anybody knows of one, perhaps they could share it with us.
I think you've got a link.
Sheila Wynne asks a question: is there as much epiphytic growth in the coniferous rainforests as in the UK rainforests?
No, not as much. No, there is much more in these rainforests where you get the contorted shape of the branches than in the coniferous rainforests.
There's a question. Could you tell us, this is from Virginia. Could you tell us where in Cornwall the restoration projects of the forests are taking place, please?
One is very near to Wistman's Wood on the centre of Dartmoor. Another one, I think, is in, trying to think of the name of the property where the Hanbury Tennysons live. They have one going on at the moment.
And somebody said, where are the temperate rainforests in the Lake District? I don't know if anybody knows those, where they are. Perhaps they could tell us. Lynn Jones says, there is a lot of information about the Scottish rainforests on the Saving Scotland Rainforest website, again, which I can share with people. I presume if perhaps it's Lynn that's taking us to rainforest this year.
Yes, and there is also restoration of the Scottish rainforest going on in some of the places too.
And Joe Glentworth has given a link for the online map, which I can circulate to people.
Called Lost Rainforests.
Yes, called Lost Rainforests of Britain.
There's another problem in the Scottish ones, and that is the invasion of Rhododendron ponticum.
Oh no. Sorry, I'm just I think Joe Glentworth has said that the rainforest in the Lake District is in Borrowdale. Barrowdale. I think that's the questions, unless anybody else has got some. No, I think that's the questions. By the way, if people have further questions that they'd like to put to Sir Gillian, I'm sure you wouldn't mind me sending you those questions to be answered later, Sir Gillian.
No, I wouldn't mind at all, no. But above all, I hope that if you have the opportunity, you'll do things to try and see that they're conserved and that they are extended again to something like their original distribution.
Oh, there's Joe Glentworth has asked another question here. How might climate change impact distribution of temperate rainforests?
That's a very interesting question because the climate will be different in different places. The trend in Britain is that it's getting wetter with climate change, so it may be beneficial. There are probably other areas of temperate rainforest where it will change the other way. So there's bound to be a long-term effect on some of these forests. I would predict that it'd be wetter here, but it may be a lot drier in some of the others, particularly maybe the Colchic rainforests might not get as much rain. Be an interesting thing to look at that, the predictions in climate change for the different areas where these occur. I haven't really studied that except for the British ones, where I think it bodes well for us, for the rainforest anyway.
Oh, we've got another suggestion here from Stoke, Devonshire. There's an interesting book about a temperate rainforest in the, in the Beara Peninsula in Southwest Ireland. The author is, oh dear, my Irish isn't very good here. The author is, how do you say this? Egon Dalton. EOGHANDALTUN. I can share this with people afterwards because I have.
Yes, I don't know.
Irish isn't so good.
I don't know that one.
No, we have a meeting, Wildflower Society meeting to the southeast of Ireland. It's Wexford and Waterford.
Yeah, southeast.
Yes, actually.
Southwest. Yes. I think that's Devon.
Devon, well done. So there's obviously one in the in Ireland that was missed off your list there, Sir Gillian.
Sorry about that.
Oh, Lynn Jones says the difference in epiphytic flora between conifers and deciduous subspecies is significantly affected by the acidity and basic nature of different barks. Oh, yes.
Yes, that is true. Certainly, yes. And the chemicals in the conifers too. I didn't go into the details, but it's not just the bark. It is the chemicals that are in the bark of conifers that are not very friendly to epiphytes.
All right. All right. So there's obviously a lot going on here for us. I will share a lot of this with people afterwards because there's a lot of detail here that we've got. So if there's nobody else to ask a question now, I'll say thank you very much. It's been nice to have you all around. Oh, I think we've got Peter Llewellyn, our chair, on here. Hello, Peter.
Hello, can I ask a question, please?
Certainly.
I've visited the temperate rainforests in Tasmania, and when I saw your pictures of the rainforests here, it reminded me of that because one of the main characteristics was that they were completely impenetrable. The only way we actually got in was because somebody had hacked a route through and hacked a route out again. And when I saw it, I thought, are our rainforests as impenetrable as they look?
They are, and that's an important question, really. When I went to Wisman's Wood, there are, in Cornwall, there are big signs asking people to walk round it and not into it. And naturally, I obeyed the signs, and the photos I took at the periphery or with telephoto. A couple of visitors came and they tried to hack their way straight in through the wood. Now, that's not what you do in these to destroy the rainforest, but they are impenetrable. And so I think particularly the ones in Tasmania, the ones in Britain, and the ones in South America are very similar in their physiognomy, and so they're difficult to go through. On the other hand, the Canadian ones and the Colchic rainforests are quite easy to walk through. I walked around with no difficulty in those two. But yes, you're quite right. The Tasmanian ones are very difficult to get through, and don't get through to destroy them. Walk around them.
I understand that it was that particular property was one of the reasons why they placed some of the convict colonies in Tasmania quite close, because they knew if they escaped, they would never get through it anyway.
Are you sure you haven't made that one up, Peter?
No, that's what they told us.
I would say it's quite likely, having tried to get through the forests in Chile, it is difficult. There was another hazard when I was in Chile because we were fortunately escorted by soldiers from the battalion there, because it was just after the Falklands War, and Chile was very much on our side. I was able to walk through the forest because I was British, a friend of Chile, and the soldier would tell us, there's a mine there, there's a mine there. He knew where it was safe for me to walk. So it was not only the impenetrability of the forest, but it was mined at the stage when I was visiting.
Oh my goodness. Oh, another question. I'm wondering, Joe Glentler says, I'm wondering how the different rainforests you've visited across the world differed structurally or ecologically, depending on the larger fauna they support.
No, that's an interesting question, which I haven't really thought very much about. None of these rainforests have very large animals fauna. Most of it is much smaller fauna than you get in the tropical rainforests and tropical areas. So I don't know that there's that much difference.
And we've got a number of saying, thank you very much. Thank you, a very fascinating talk. And Anne Hercock has read the book, An Irish Atlantic Rainforest is an excellent book. Thank you very much for the talk tonight. Okay, so thank you. Thank you.